I think it is clear to believe in the power of ideas.
Fresh thinking to the Manhattan Institute.
Good evening. I'm Larry Mone, president of the Manhattan Institute, and it's an honor to welcome you all to the first national meeting of the Adam Smith Society. Just a housekeeping note up front, please turn off all cell phones and recording devices because the presentations tonight and tomorrow are going to be off the record. It was just about 18 months ago that the Manhattan Institute decided to launch the Adam Smith Society to help expose business school students to free market thinkers and entrepreneurial business leaders. Today, I am proud to report that we now have 11 schools represented officially, more on the way, and some 400 students in our network. And this really is just the beginning. We have more schools coming and great expectations for the alumni network we are building, and anticipate that members will comprise the next generation of business leaders advocating on behalf of free markets. I think our rapid growth is a testament to the hunger among business school students for an education that is not only about accounting, financing, and marketing, which are all important, but also about the deeper intellectual, historical, and philosophical underpinnings of our free market system. Why Adam Smith? Smith, of course, is one of the most influential proponents of the free market system in modern history, but to limit his work to economics is to do him a great disservice. Smith actually began as a moral philosopher. He understood that markets don't work in a moral vacuum, that markets and morality are not just related, but are in fact inseparable from one another. No one has done more to demonstrate that than a free society is just not practical, but is moral as well. Unfortunately, in recent years, capitalism and free markets have almost become pejorative terms in certain circles. With the Adam Smith Society, we hope to change that dynamic by making the moral case for capitalism. Through this effort, we plan to remind tomorrow's business leaders that the free market system is the only real way to create economic growth and allow individuals to achieve their full potential. The clearest example of that in modern times is North and South Korea. It amazes me that more attention is not paid to the dichotomy that exists. Over the past several decades, the free market system in South Korea has created one of the world's most dynamic and vibrant economies and lifted millions of people out of poverty, not to mention the emergence of democracy by the creation of a middle class in that country, while their cousins in the North live lives of subjugation and starvation. So it is we think that the Adam Smith Society is a good and important idea, and a timely one. But as any entrepreneur knows, there are lots of good ideas that never reach fruition. Indeed, the idea of the Adam Smith Society would never have gotten this far, but for the work of the speaker I'm going to introduce, Marilyn Fedak. Marilyn is one of the most accomplished women of her generation in the world of finance. After graduating from Smith College and then Harvard Business School, she was a systems programmer at IBM and a portfolio manager and research analyst at Morgan Guaranty Trust. In 1984, she joined the legendary firm Sanford C. Bernstein, the predecessor to AllianceBernstein, as a senior portfolio manager and quickly rose through the ranks. She was chief investment officer for the U.S. large cap value equities from 1993 to 2009. In 2003, she also became the business head of Bernstein Global Value Equities. She also was named in 2009 the vice chairman of the investment services. She created and headed the talent development team and was president of the Sanford C. Bernstein Mutual Funds. She was a partner at AllianceBernstein and served on Sanford C. Bernstein's board of directors. Although she retired from the firm in December of 2010, she continues to serve as vice chairman emeritus for investment services at AllianceBernstein and is the chairman of the board for their alternative investment strategy fund. In addition to her great investment accomplishments, she is also the founder of the Marilyn G. Fedak Capitalism Project, which provides support for our Adam Smith Society and is on the board of Commentary Magazine and a member of the Dean's Council of the Weill Cornell Medical College. She has provided the intellectual and financial capital to launch this society, and we at the Institute are eternally grateful for both. Please join me in welcoming Marilyn Fedak.
Thank you, Larry. That was very nice. I was actually almost impressed by myself when I heard it, you know. Who remembers, you know, that you did all these things? So first of all, thank you all for coming. Thank you all, most importantly, for being part of the Adam Smith Society. I can't tell you how much it means to me, although maybe you can tell by my excitement a little bit. I found out today that the conference was oversubscribed, that we actually had to turn people away from the waiting list. I feel so popular. I haven't felt this popular since high school, and Larry didn't mention this, but I was co-captain of the cheerleaders in high school. So thank you. That actually is my proudest accomplishment. So, you know, it's really saying something to say I actually feel that popular. So, enough about me. I want to talk about you. And first of all, I want to say how much I appreciate everyone being here tonight. But there are two groups in particular that I want to single out. And the first are the people that started and led our chapters over the last 18 months, really the early adopters of the Adam Smith Society. Larry spoke about our early success and the growth that we've had, and I know we owe it all to you. It's not to us and our support. It's really to your leadership and enthusiasm and excitement about this idea. And secondly, I'd like to welcome those of you who are here because you're thinking of starting chapters at your business school, either in this academic year or next academic year, because you're going to be part of our big second wave of expansion, and that we're hoping that next year we'll see you here as full members of Adam Smith. So thank you guys a lot. Now, many of you who have been to other events that we've had or where I've come to speak to your individual groups know how this project got started. But what I'd like to do, and I am going to do it, I promised you very briefly, is explain to you a little more of how the idea originated, how we decided to launch Adam Smith, and most importantly, what it is that we're trying to do. So for me, this really began it was actually almost exactly 4 years ago, the winter of 2009. It was the worst part of the credit crisis. And as you might anticipate, I was totally glued to the business news. And as I was watching, it became apparent to me that the critics of capitalism, of the free markets, were seizing upon this as an opportunity to demonize capitalism. They were actually blaming capitalism for the crisis. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this news and I'm thinking, they're blaming capitalism for the crisis? Are these people insane? You know, what don't they get about capitalism? This is the system that has made our country so great. This is the system that has provided so much opportunity to great innovators like Steve Jobs and John Mackey and Bill Gates and I hope to many of you in your careers. How could it be that they don't think that this is a good economic system? And the rhetoric was more than intellectual. It actually got pretty personal and I felt actually almost demagogic at various points in time. But even worse than the rhetoric was the actions that were being taken. It's hard to remember this now, but I mean, big companies were being nationalized or quasi-nationalized. Industries, the same. The rule of bankruptcy, of law, was being subverted in some cases. So this got me really angry, and it got me very upset. I have been so lucky in my own life. I mean, you have no idea. I mean, I am the luckiest woman in the world. And I owe so much of it to our free markets. So I decided right there and then that I had to do something to support capitalism. I had to do something to make sure that the next generation of business leaders, guys like you, and by the way, when I say guys, that's men and women. I don't want anyone to accuse me of being sexist. I call everybody guys. But I wanted to make sure that guys like you had the same opportunities to achieve that I had when I was your age. So that was the impetus that led me to start the modestly named Marilyn G. Fedak Capitalism Project. Hey, you'll find out. You write the checks, you get to call it anything you want. You know, people are very open about that idea. And it was shortly after that that I decided that I wanted to partner in this effort with the Manhattan Institute because of the Institute's great intellectual resources and contacts and knowledge of academia. And as Larry said, it was just 18 months ago where we launched the first chapter at the Harvard Business School. Now, I had a little bit of a metamorphosis of my own during this process, because when I first started thinking about the project and what I wanted to do, I was really focusing on the practical aspects of capitalism. You know, its contribution to economic growth, job creation, personal advancement. But I soon realized that that wasn't the real crisis of capitalism. Most people in this country get the pragmatic benefits of the free markets. I mean, there are some nut jobs out there who don't, or even worse, who do, but they don't really care, because, you know, it's not the way they think things should be. But honestly, most reasonable people get that it has practical advantages. The real crisis of capitalism is that so many people in this country don't understand how important capitalism is to our way of life. It is a vital underpinning. I mean, there's lots of fancy ways that you can describe this, but I think of it very simply. If you don't have economic autonomy, then you don't have individual liberty. It really is almost as simple as that. So this is what we're trying to do with Adam Smith. We're trying to get Americans to understand how important the free markets are to our very way of life. And we'll be hearing about that, I hope, from Cliff Asness. I actually don't know what Cliff is going to talk about. I don't think he's told anybody yet, but we'll find out. And from our speakers tomorrow. Now, I thought this was important when I started the Capitalism Project 4 years ago, but I had no idea, because it has only gotten worse since. The rhetoric, I think, has gotten a lot harsher, and the anti-business attitudes have gotten more pervasive. You can see this all throughout the country. It's in our culture, it's in our politics. Let's talk about the culture. What was the last movie that you guys saw where a business person was the hero? I don't see a single hand going up in the room. I can't think of any. Well, Atlas Shrugged, but I mean, that was hardly a mainstream movie, but it was a good go. Thanks, Ken. I think it kind of totally failed, but it was a good try. Okay. And of course, you've also totally ruined my storyline here, but I'm just going to ignore that he said that and just forge ahead. Okay. So, but I think, actually, it's not so bad. I think I can segue right into this without missing a beat. What was the last movie that you saw where a business person or a corporation was the villain? Okay, now I'm seeing lots of nods around the room. You can name lots of these. Now, by the way, call me naive, but I actually didn't realize until I started going to popular movies how many companies have their own hit squads. I mean, they need hit squads. You know, there's competitors that have to be taken out. There's whistleblowers that have to be silenced. I mean, who knew? But, you know, you can learn a lot from the popular culture. Okay, let's turn to the political landscape. Why was the president so eager to disparage the accomplishments of entrepreneurs with the infamous "you didn't build that" speech? Why? Because he knew it would play well with a large swath of voters. How did Mitt Romney, a successful and an honorable businessman, get tarred so easily as a rapacious job killer? It's because so much of the populace has been conditioned to think this. We have got to change these stereotypes. Now, I don't want to sound overly political here. This really isn't about being a liberal or a conservative. This has nothing to do with being a Democrat or a Republican. This is about upholding the virtues of our economic system and the opportunity it provides to everyone to better themselves. This is about restoring the idea that a career in business is a noble endeavor, that it actually acts to help so much of our society. Now look, even when the powers that be kind of, talk the talk or walk the walk or whatever they do, when they say that they do care about the free markets, when they say that they do want to help innovators and entrepreneurs, much of the time the legislation and the regulation that they put in place has exactly the opposite effect. So let me give you some examples. If everyone wants cleaner energy sources, why is the EPA on the warpath against natural gas? This makes no sense. Anti-fracking initiatives are standing in the way of some of the most important goals that we have in the United States. It is the path to our economy's revitalization, to our energy independence, to our global competitiveness. Who could be against this? It makes me crazy. If everyone loves new technology, why is there a new tax on medical devices as part of the Affordable Care Act? This tax is 2.3% on sales, not earnings, sales. So even if the company is making no money, even if it's operating at a loss, they still have to pay this tax. Really makes you guys want to go out there and start a medical company. Not. It's a big barrier in your way. And forget about, the loss of economic opportunity to you guys and others, though that's very important. What really makes me scared is what new life-saving devices will never make it to market because of the barriers standing in their way. Okay, I just have one more because actually my blood pressure can't take much more of this. If everyone wants more jobs, why do we tolerate the National Labor Relations Board getting into the micromanagement of company strategies? I'm sure you guys remember it was just about a year ago where they tried to stop Boeing from establishing a new plant in North Carolina. Do these guys care about jobs? It certainly doesn't sound like it. Now this trend, I hope you aren't incredibly depressed at this point, because this trend is really disheartening, to say the least. But it can be stopped. It can be turned around. Look, I know that there are some people in this country who believe that we have reached a tipping point, that the culture, the demographics, the politics, the entitlements have just gotten too big, that it is leading us on the road inexorably to kind of a Western European style nanny state. But the people you will meet this weekend don't believe that. If we believed that, we would have conceded defeat. We certainly wouldn't be here supporting these efforts, and from the donor standpoint, we certainly wouldn't be putting our money where our mouths are. What are the forces that we think can stem the tide? It's simple. It's you guys. It's the future business leaders of this country. Look, I know, and I've met some of you guys over the last 18 months. I met some of you guys tonight. You guys, you have passion, you have creativity, you have talent. You're not going to let these anti-capitalists thwart your ambition. You're going to fight it. And in doing so, you're going to turn this. We know that you will carry the seeds of renewal and revitalization during this period. So our job at the Adam Smith Society is to support you in every way that we can. This conference isn't just about us talking to you, though it may seem like it when, Cliff and I are up here on the podium. We want to hear from you. I want to hear what it is that you need. How can we support you? My generation is the past. It is your generation that will determine the future. The role you have taken on isn't an easy one. It is very hard to turn a great ship in mid-course. But I know that you will do it. You will do it for the sake of your future, for the future of your children, for the future of your grandchildren, and for the future of this country. And I and everybody else here in this room thank you for it. So guys, thank you for your time and attention. They're going to make me give the podium back to Larry to introduce Cliff in a moment. But let me just say that I'm going to be here after the event. I'm going to be here all tomorrow, and I really do want to hear from you and what we can do for you. So thank you so much.
I think it is clear how fortunate we are to believe in the power of ideas.
Supply the common sense and the fresh thinking of the Manhattan Institute.